Everybody. So we're going to go ahead and get right into Numbers chapter 22. We're going to start off in verse number 1. Now, this is a continuation of the study that we did last Sunday school, last week, of the ungodly man of God. So this is part 2 to that. And Numbers chapter 22, verse 1. The children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side Jordan by Jericho. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites and Moab, and was sore afraid of the people because there were many, and Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, How shall this company lick us up round about us like an ox licketh up the grass of a field? And Balak the son of Zippor was king of Moab at that time. He sent messengers therefore unto Balaam the son of Beor to Pelthor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there cometh out of Egypt thence people that cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Now we chat about last week about the people. So he saddles his donkey, the Bible says, his ass. And what happened is he gets out into the regions of the outskirts of his land, and he doesn't obey God completely. So I remember last week I'd mentioned to you that the first time he disobeyed God was when he got up the next morning. The Bible said that he saddled his ass. And God told him in the previous portion of the scripture, you're going to wait until the morning. So the angel of God was upset with him, and he saw him coming down the road and treated him like an adversary, ready to fight, and had his sword drawn and ready to kill Balaam. Now Balaam is sitting on this donkey, and this donkey could have just not stopped. He could have kept on walking, but that donkey cared for Balaam and kept diverting. Balaam gets mad, whacks the donkey with a stick and everything, and God opens the mouth of the donkey. The donkey speaks, and then he finds out what's going on. God opens Balaam's eyes. And Balaam realized, yes, I've done wrong. I didn't obey God. But then things get a little bit more interesting. You see, when he comes up to this king that called for him, I can imagine Balaam is hoping that he can curse these people. But God said, no, they are not to be cursed. They are blessed. Now remember, why did this king want Balaam to go over there and curse them in the first place? Because he told him, whoever you curse is cursed. Whoever you bless is blessed. So right there, you got to imagine Balaam is a man to be sought after. Wow. I want this man to curse these people, because anytime you curse them, they are cursed. Anytime you bless them, they are blessed. And I need you to help defeat this enemy. Well, this enemy, it turns out to be none other than the children of Israel. God says, no, you are not to curse them. Now we look at Balaam. He seems to be a pretty outright good guy. He's talking with God. He's communing with God. He's doing what God requests, but he, like a couple other prophets that have disobeyed God in times past, he decides, I want something a little different than what God wanted for us. So now we advance to Numbers into chapter 20. Numbers chapter 22 we were in. Now we're going to be in Numbers chapter 22, and we're going to start out in verse number 39. Numbers chapter 22, verse 39. And let's see. And Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kirjath Herzoth. And Balak offered oxen and sheep, and sent to Balaam and the princes that were with him. And it came to pass in the morrow that Balak took Balaam and brought him up into the high place of Baal, that thence they might see the utmost part of the people. Now, this is we're going to use quotations of a man of God. He's not a man of God. He's a man of God that's for hire. He's only there to make money and get rich, and we see that sadly today too. So Balaam, he gets sent to this location. He gets on top of this area in Kirjath Huzoth, and Balaam then proceeds to go into the high places of Baal, a very wicked location. Now, they usually, typically, would like to get the highest high points to go ahead and make the spots to offer to Baal. So you would go all the way up to this very high location to offer to Baal, and it was supposed to be an enlightening experience. And it's not something that you would be looked down upon. It would be something that would be a pinnacle of your life, something that would be big, important. And one of the best things you could do to Baal is to sacrifice your child to Baal, a living sacrifice. You would take your innocent child and you would walk it into Baal, and the priests would kill this child. And of course, they would also drown out the screaming of the tortures of this child by drums. It's a very disgusting, very filthy thing that was going on. And you know what they do? They bring the man of God into that house of Baal to see where the children of Israel are, because it's at a very high point. So it's a very disgusting place. It's a very filthy place. And this man of God goes into this filthy place to proceed to bless or to curse the people that God blessed. I got to tell you, that is right there an oxymoron. It doesn't make any sense. You know, he should have at least been like, I ain't going into that place, buddy. You know, but no, we got to come up. We got to see what's going on here. So he goes. And you know, this man of God sees something amazing. Well, when he gets in there, he sees the fourth part of Israel. The Bible says he saw the utmost, which is an actual definition of the fourth part. And so when he looks into the fourth part, he can't help but bless what God sees. You know, he is the eyes of God, essentially, and he's right there, and he's saying, hey, whatever I say, I'm not going to be able to control it. God's just going to take over my voice. He's going to talk for me. He's going to see what I see, and I'm not going to be able to do anything but what God wants. So, he sees the people, and he just becomes overcome. You know, he just gets overwhelmed, and in verse number 10, we see what he says. Who can count the dust of Jacob? And the number of the fourth part of Israel. That's what I was telling you about, the utmost, the fourth part. Let me die the death of righteousness, and let my last end be like this. And Balak said to Balaam, what hast thou done unto me? I took thee to curse mine enemies, and behold, thou hast blessed them all together. And Balak said unto him, come, I pray thee. And he answered verse 12, and said, Must I not take heed to speak that which the Lord hath put in my mouth? So they go to another location. We look in Numbers chapter 23 and verse 13. They get to this other location. Balak said, come, I pray thee, to another place from whence thou mayest see them. Thou shalt see, remember that word, the utmost part of them. Thou shalt not see them all, and shalt not see them all, and curse them from thence. So, hey, I'm going to take you to another location. I need you to curse these people. You know, it's another spot, slightly different from this one, but it's still got these people. Maybe you can curse these people. And he brought them to the field of Ziphram, to the top of Pisgah, and built 7 altars, and offered a bullock and a ram on every altar. Now, you know what's something really interesting here? This guy, he does not skimp on an offering to God. I don't know if you guys have ever done any research as to how much money it costs. And it is expensive to buy a full-grown ox. And that's what this man's doing. He's not buying cheap. He's not buying a little baby cow. he's buying a full-grown ox. He's buying something big. He's buying something of value, and he's laying it on an altar. So he already killed previously. Now he's killing again to try to get the oracle of God. I mean, this man, this king, he's really determined. This is not a cheap offering. This is like the cost of a car, going out and just throwing it away, offering it to God, never to be seen of again. This is a offering, a very expensive offering. Well, he goes ahead and offers this bullock, and he comes to try to appease the Lord. But what does he get? He gets another blessing. Another blessing given to the children of Israel, the one he's supposed to curse. The Bible says in verse 24, after they had done all the offering, in verse 24, behold, the people shall rise up as a great lion and lift himself as a young lion. He shall not lay down until he eat of the prey and drink the blood of the slain. And Balak said to Balaam, neither curse them nor bless them. Hey, just don't say anything. You're helping them. Just don't say anything. I've heard some people say some things are best left unsaid. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And he's like, hey, if you can't tell me anything good, just don't say anything. So they go to a new location. And this one is very, very important. Numbers chapter 23. And we look in verse 27. And Balak said to Balaam, come, I pray thee, I will bring thee into another place. Peradventure it will please God that thou mayest curse me them from thence. And Balak took Balaam to the top of Peor. Now this is a very important part of the Bible here, and I need you to look at this. He took him to the top of Peor that looketh toward Jeshimon. And Balaam said to Balak, build me here 7 altars. So right now, we can just do simple math. 7 plus 7, 14. We add another 7 to that, 21. He's already offered 21 now oxen and 21 sheep. I mean, this is not a small offering here. And this king, he is trying to plead with God. God, can you do something? These people, I don't want them here. But you know what happens? Balak can't even help himself. When he does this, he gets in contact with God through Balaam. And in verse 24, verse 1, and when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he went not as other times to seek for enchantments, but he set his face toward the wilderness. And we look in verse 17 and 18. He says, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and it will smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Shesheth. And Edom shall be a possession unto Seir, and also a possession to his enemies, and Israel shall do violently. So he right here does another blessing. Another one, 3 blessings. And this king is just like, I hired you to come out here and to curse my enemies, and you bless them? I can imagine he is completely beside himself. Now the Bible says that Balak left. In chapter 24, verse 25, Balaam rose up and went and returned to his place, and Balak also went his way. Now, if this was the last thing we heard today, Balaam would have been a very good man of God. He blessed Israel 3 times. He did not curse. He did what God commanded. But Balaam was opening Israel up for a curse. Let's go ahead and turn our Bibles forward to Numbers chapter 31. Numbers chapter 31, we're going to be looking in verse 16. Numbers chapter 31, verse 16. Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of, remember that word I said was very, very important? Peor. To commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague amongst the congregation of the Lord. Now, therefore, no, actually, I take that back. Let's go ahead and go to the next part, Numbers chapter 25. There's another spot that we need to look at, Numbers chapter 25, and we're going to look in verse number 1. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. Now remember, who was Moab? Well, if we look back, who was the father of Moab? It was Lot, the man who was a good man, but vexed his righteous soul in a place called Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, sin will literally get into your genealogy, and it will just follow you if you don't align yourself with God. You know, this man decides, hey, I want to be involved in this sin enough, just a little pet sin. It's not major. I'm not going to be completely enveloped in it. But what did it do? It ruined his family. His wife died, and his 2 daughters, while he was drunk, committed a disgusting act with their father. You know, the children of Moab is from Moab's, Lot's 2 daughters. That's how Moab came to be. So these Moabites are literally descendants from a man and his 2 daughters. It's a very sad situation. Now, Numbers, we look in chapter 25, verse 1. Chapter 25, verse 1. Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifice of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. Now, you notice something very interesting here. What were they doing? They were bowing down. They were worshiping the God of the Moabites. Now, why did they do that? Well, let's go ahead and hold that spot because we're going to come back to Numbers. But let's go ahead and look in Revelations. Revelations chapter 2. We're going to start off in verse 14. Revelations chapter 2 and verse 14. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam. Now, who's he talking to? He's talking to the church at Pergamos. This is a later time, but what is he actually saying? You hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak. Remember him? Balak the king, to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. You know, this is immorality, and this king is taught by the man of God to commit this filthiness. Now, I've got to ask you, does this sound like a man of God? Why did he do that? Well, let's go ahead and look in Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20, and we look in verse number 5. What's a commandment? Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them. You see, this is God giving a commandment to the children of Israel about idols. Let's look back in verse number 4, though. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. Now, we're going to look back at this in here in just a second, but you do realize that there were people that worshipped just about everything you could imagine. You know, people still today worship animals, a snake, a bird, a cow in India. I mean, it's sad. People actually spending money, the hard-earned money, and giving it to an animal that doesn't know anything. And God said it's wicked. You know, they got out of Egypt. That's what God's doing in here in Exodus. He's explaining to them, I've got these rules. I'm jealous. I don't want to share you with anybody. So you need to get rid of your idols. They would, a very typical thing in Egypt time is the people would give like trinkets to women, a frog. And that frog was like a good luck trinket for a healthy birth. And so this trinket was a way of like, hey, good luck on your birth, and may this God protect you. So that this woman would get a whole bunch of frog memorabilia as a way to say, congratulations, hey, good luck on your birth. And it was a nice little gesture. Hey, they gave me a frog. That's so sweet. I know this God's going to look over me and protect me. And that's what they would do a lot of. And so God's saying, this is wicked. This is taking love away from me, and I don't love it. I don't like it. In Exodus chapter 34, we see in verse number 12, Exodus chapter 34, and we see in verse number 12, take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, whither thou goest, lest it be a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, cut down their groves. For thou shalt worship no other God. And you look at that little g, God, that means no other deity, no other God for the Lord. And then you notice these are all capitals. Lord, whose name is, that's actually his name, jealous. He's jealous for you. He loves you. Jealous is a jealous God. You know, he's saying, I love you so much, I don't want to share you. And he's basically like a wife or a husband saying, I don't want to bring another person into this relationship. I'm happy with you. I don't want to share you with anybody. Jealous for my mate. And so what this person this passage is actually saying is I don't want to share you. I don't want to share you with another God. I'm jealous. Lest, in verse 15, thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a-whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. And thou take of their daughters and thy sons, and their daughters go a-whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a-whoring after their gods. Thou shalt make thee no molten god. This is very exact. I don't want any sort of God in front of me. And if we look at Numbers, what is before Numbers? It's Exodus. Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Numbers is the 4th chapter of the Bible. It's not that long ago that this was actually written. They're coming into God's promised land, and they're already committing a disastrous act to God in his face. Well, we see right here, Balaam, he conspires to remove Israel. So let's go back to that area we were talking about, Numbers. Numbers chapter 24. And we'll look in verse 14. And now, behold, I will go unto my people. Come, therefore, I will advise thee what this people shall do to thy people in the latter days. So Balaam, he's like, I'm not going to be able to do anything. I can't curse them. But I got an idea. And he tells them, hey, come with me. Let's talk about this. What they shall do to thy people in the latter days. Let me tell you what's going to happen, what God's going to do. And I can imagine right here, he has an idea. And he wants that money. I can imagine he really wants that money. He's thinking of all the things he could buy. Man, I could have camels. Oh, man, to have a camel. I mean, I like this donkey until it started talking to me. But, man, if I had a camel, life would be good. You see, a donkey, man, it can get you to point A to point B. It does it reliably, but it needs water. It needs water that day. It can't survive long without it. But a camel can go for days without water. You know, it has that fat at the back of it where it stores the water, that hump. And so camels can go a long time. And so, man, I would like a camel. I can imagine this is exactly what he wants. He wants a camel. Camels aren't cheap. I can imagine he's excited thinking all the stuff he could buy if he could only get Israel to lose favor with God. So he gives him a little bit of advice, we find out later on. In Revelations, it talks about it, how he talked with the king Balak and gave him some advice of how to win in a battle. You see, they're not going to be able to win in this battle if they fight him because God's already blessed him. But now I've got an idea of how to be a snare. You know, how to possibly win in this battle. You know, there's many times in history where people have done similar acts, very similar acts. You know, there was a time as well in history that there was a king of England and a king of France, and they did not like each other. And the same sort of thing happened where the king of England, with his entourage, went to France to get one king crowned. And the people in France purposefully were trying to get the people of England diseased. And so they used a group of women for that same thing. You see, it's not something new. You know, the devil will do anything in his power to pull you down. You know, that devil, he's not stupid. He's been around for a long time. He knows every trick in the book. Remember, the Bible talks about the devil. It uses him in a few different cases. He talks about him as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. But you know what he also talks about him? He talks about him too like an archer. And he says that he's using his different arrows, shooting off arrows. And does this one stick? Well, let me see if this person's thinking about this. Is he interested about this? And I can imagine as he's trying to stick those arrows into Balaam, he's like, oh, I see that this one caught. Balaam really wants to go. Oh, he wants money. Oh, let me go ahead and throw a few more arrows in for good measure. Maybe Balaam will really think about this. And I can imagine, how does Balaam think, like, oh, what am I going to do? I really want this money. And so he gives an idea to the king of to King Balak. Now the Bible says, stopping right here, there's one little spot. We look at Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. That was right there a attack against God. That was right there just, God said, quite frankly, you're only to be having a relationship with somebody if you're married. That would be the first one. But the second one they did in verse 2 was they sacrificed to their gods. That was then as well putting their God in front of the one true God. And God was not going to have any of that. So now we look at Deuteronomy, the next book over. Deuteronomy chapter 7. Deuteronomy chapter 7, and we look in verse 3. The Bible says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter shall not give unto his son, or shall not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn thy son from following me. And they will make thee serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars, break down their images, cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. God said this in another spot in the Bible too. You know, it's almost like God knew that this was important information. You know, God's like, I don't want to share you. I'm going to repeat this. I've had a couple times as a parent, I've had to repeat things. to my kids. You're not listening to me, and I have to get a little bit louder. I have to say it over again. Now, did you hear me that time? God's basically doing this. He's a parent to a bunch of young kids, children of Israel, that are not paying attention. And he's like, hey, pay attention. Hey, listen to me. And so I can imagine right here, this is information they need to hear. God tells them this. He repeats himself. Now, we look back at Numbers chapter 25. We go back again, Numbers chapter 25. And let's look in verse number 5. And Moses said unto the children of Israel, slay ye every one his man that were joined unto Baal Peor. Now remember, I told you that Peor is very, very important, and this is right here why it's so important. Baal Peor. That's Baal of Peor. So if we had a Baal that we were worshiping, it would be Baal Las Vegas, Baal Los Angeles, Baal Seattle. And he's saying that Baal of Peor. Now remember, Peor was that last place that they went to go ahead and bless the children of Israel. And he's like, I got to go now. Hey, but come walk with me. Got an idea. I got an idea of how we can get rid of these children of Israel. And then he talks to this king about how God is a jealous God. God does not want to share his people. So if we can commit a violent act in God's eyes, a vile, vile act in God's eyes, and have them bow down to a different God, that might do the trick. And what we'll do is we'll use these women, these horrible, disgusting women, and they're going to be the ones that are going to do it. They're going to do it all for us. It's going to be awesome. But what does it cost? What does it cost this man? Well, we'll find out. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto the brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moses. He comes walking in, this woman. It's a prize. He was walking through the midst in front of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Right in front of the church building, the people are weeping. He's walking by with this Midianitish woman, hand in hand, walking over towards his tent. It's like, hey, Moses, how's it going? Walking by, hand in hand, with this Midianitish woman. He's walking right in front of her, and when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. Took a giant like spear. And when he went in after the man of Israel into the tent. Now, they go walking into the tent. I don't have to tell you what they're getting ready to do. I think you all know. So they're going into this place to do something that God said, it's not okay. And this man of God goes, ain't going to happen. Picks up a spear, walks right in the tent right after them. He's going to go take care of business. He went into the tent. He went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust of them through the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. One spear right through both of them. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. And those that died in the plague were how many? 24,000. I think we know why those women were crying. The people were crying near the tabernacle. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, hath turned my wrath away from the children of Israel, while he was zealous for my sake among them, that I consumed not the children of Israel in my jealousy. God was ready to consume Israel. They might have had to leave and go out of God's promised land again. This is going to be a crazy thing, but here I want to show you one last part. Actually, a couple last parts here. Exodus chapter 19, God's covenant. Remember, we were in Exodus chapter 20. God was very zealous. God is a jealous God. He even talks about how jealous he is in verse 5. But we're going to be in Exodus chapter 19 in verse 5 now. Exodus chapter 19 and verse 5. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, it's like a contract. Keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar people unto me above all people of the world, all the people, for all the world is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. And Moses came and called the elders of the people and laid their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. So God's saying, I have a contract with you. Now, it's a very interesting thing about this contract. If you look previously and you look laterally, God talks about it consistently, that I have a covenant with you, a contract. And this covenant is so specific that if you get out of this contract, I will remove my obligation of the contract. Contracts are very big, and you'll find them all over, even today. I have a contract with my house. I purchased my house, and I agreed to pay this amount to the mortgage lender. Now, if I decide to renege on my contract, to not pay up, what is that mortgage lender going to do? He's going to take my house. He's going to take that back. I have reneged on my end of the deal of the contract, and now he has possession of my house. And you know what God is saying? If you decide you don't want to be a part of this anymore, guess what? I'm going to go quickly and I'm going to remove you. God even talks about it in Revelations. I will remove your candlestick. I'm going to take away the light. There's not going to be anything of you around anymore. God's very specific about it. He does not deal kindly with those that want a two-time with him. Well, we look at why did that man of God, quote unquote, why did that man of God decide to choose something different than God? Why did he choose money? Well, maybe 1 Timothy has something to say about that. Chapter 6 and verse 10. Well, actually, let's look at verse 9. But they that will be rich fall in temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. Now, this was a very misquoted Bible verse, but a lot of people know about it. For the love of money is the root of all evil. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people misquote that and say, well, money is the root of all evil. And I'm like, that's a very interesting chapter and verse on that one, because I have not seen that. And I've read the Bible through a few times. It's the love. The lust. I will do anything. I don't care who I kill, who I stab in the back. I mean, let's just pause that for a second and think about that. Can we rewind ourselves a little bit? People that are doing things in our nation. I mean, there's been a lot of talk of how certain things have been made and produced that have actually turned out to be false. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want anything to come back to me and people to try to point fingers at me and try to say defamation of character or anything. But let's go ahead and look at certain pharmaceutical companies who've made products that they've come to find out, that's cancerous. That's bad. And then they said, well, wait a minute. You knew that was cancerous all these years and you didn't say anything about it. Now it's an issue? Well, guess what? They had a lust for money. They knew about it, but they wanted to withhold the information. Because why? Because it was profitable. They were buying our product left and right. Oh, too bad they were pushing all these chemicals that are really, really harmful to our children. But guess what? It's making us rich. This is the issue. The love of money is not, it's not money that's not the root of all evil. It's that love, that lust. I will do anything. And so 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 10 says, the love of money is the root of all evil, which, while some coveted after they erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. This man, he erred from the faith. He was after something that would profit him. But he did not want what God was intending. He wasn't looking after what God wanted. He was looking after me, myself, what I want. Well, what happens to this ungodly man of God? Well, let's go ahead and advance and see his last days. Joshua chapter 13. Now, in my Bible reading, I can tell you I've heard this over and over and over, and it really kind of was like just sinking in. What in the world? Why am I hearing this? Why is this so important to me? And it made sense more now. Joshua chapter 13. This ungodly man of God dies. Verse 22. Joshua chapter 13, verse 22. And Balaam, also the son of Beor, the soothsayer, did the children of Israel slay with the sword, among them that were slain by them. Now, we look at why did this ungodly man of God have to die? If Balaam just did what God commanded, went there, said, nope, I ain't gonna do it, they're blessed. I quite frankly believe that when they got in there, they would have met up with Balaam and like, hey, guess what, Balaam? Welcome to the family. But you know what Balaam did? He was after that love of money. No, I'm not going to go ahead and tell you what God has done in your life and how God wants you to live your life. I don't know that, but I got to tell you, some people have that lust and that love of money. I don't care what I'm going to do or who I mess over. I want money. Now, some people, when the Bible talks about the darts, the wiles of the devil, and I really do believe there's many different darts. There's different sins. There's fornication. There's lustfulness. The Bible says if you look on a woman to lust, you've committed adultery in your heart. Maybe the devil's trying to throw a couple of those arrows at you. Hey, maybe this will take. But then, that didn't work. Maybe I can get him on another thing. And he probably gets anger. Maybe, hey, this anger can actually take hold, and they're going to be angry, and they're going to sin that way. Let's go ahead and try that. Throw off a few darts. No. Maybe it's lusting and coveting after your neighbor. Maybe, their neighbor has a nice boat, and they don't. How come I don't have a nice boat? Start throwing off arrows. Maybe it's money. Well, this person has money and they don't. Maybe I could try that. You see, the Bible talks about how when the devil is casting those at you, he's trying to see, are you going to do anything? Are you going to act on that? Are you going to contemplate it? Is that going to make you upset? Is that going to make you vengeful? What are you going to do? You know what the Bible says? The Bible says, if you resist the devil, if you resist those attacks, he's going to flee from you. Oh, this ain't working out. I'm getting out of here. Now, this man, I know, wanted what the devil was enticing him with. And it's so sad because he was a man of God. He was used to prosper Israel. Because of him, he actually blessed Israel, but he also brought a curse on Israel. He didn't physically say the words because he didn't want God to kill him right there on the spot, but he tells a king how to be a stumbling block. Now I got to tell you guys, are you a stumbling block? Are you a Balaam? Are you giving advice that's completely contrary to the Word of God? Are you in bed with the devil? Are you the reason why people don't want to come to church? Boy, I tell you, I beg of you today, don't be a Balaam. Today I challenge you, if you've got anything you're holding before God, give it up before it's too late. Dear God, thank you so much, Lord, for this blessing of the story. A very sad story, but a perfect example of a man, Balaam, that, Lord, just was unable to give you his life. Lord, you had control of his life for a bit of time, but then, Lord, he just got the desire to serve himself and not you. God, I pray, Lord, that your people will give you their lives. Lord, that they won't be like this Balaam, who's stubborn and hard-hearted and refuses to give in to what you want. Lord, I pray that they will give you what you need before it's too late. And Lord, you take them home. God, we thank you and praise you for everything you've done and everything you do. We ask you to continue to use us. For it's your name we ask it all. Amen.